What's going on, friends? Welcome back to Forward Progress, live here on the Forward Progress YouTube channel, part of the Hammer Betting Network and powered by Pinnacle Sportsbook. Guys, I'm producer Jason. You can catch me here every single Thursday to talk in-depth player props with Hitman and preview the Thursday night football matchup. No Eric Eager today. Unfortunately, he is sick with the flu, so we're thinking about him today. But we have Hitman. We're still going to try and go around 30 minutes. Maybe we'll get to the 30-minute mark here today with Hitman. And guys, remember, whenever Hitman's on screen for us here, you can drop your plays in the chat below, and Hitman will give you his thoughts on those plays. It's a two-way line of communication here. That's the word I'm looking for. It's a two-way line of communication here. So make sure you drop your plays in the chat. We'll have Hitman talk about them throughout the show. Before I bring on Hitman, though, just a couple things to mention. Just make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. We need all the help we can get right now. I mean, I'm having a terrible day. As you can see in my name right down here, I bet an over without checking the weather, and that's in this game right here. So I'm sitting on over 51.5 in this game, and I am like absolutely kicking myself here. So maybe we'll talk a little bit about that when Hitman joins the show here in a second. So remember, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Make me feel a little bit better about betting that over. And then the last thing here, of course, none of this would be possible without our sponsor over at Pinnacle. Pinnacle is the world's sharpest sportsbook, offering competitive odds for 25 years. We love to preach line shopping on this channel, and with everyday competitive odds, Pinnacle should be one of your available outs. If you're looking to support the show, make sure you use code HAMMER when signing up to Pinnacle. That's code HAMMER when signing up to Pinnacle. It just helps us out here. Your trusted sportsbook for 25 years. Bet smart. Bet Pinnacle. Must be 19 plus in Ontario. Please play responsibly and not available in the U.S. Guys, joining us now, someone who had a better week last week than the week prior. He's a professional bettor now. Used to be former professional bettor. Now he's back to being a professional bettor. Back from the lab. I heard he spent about 25 hours in there. Hitman, how's it going?
Feeling good. Got the under tonight, so we're head to head. And you said that you didn't check the weather. When I sent out the under at some better prices than what it is now, when I sent it out for me and some partners to bet, said my handicap is the weather. That's it. Nothing else. So sometimes it's just that simple.
Exactly. And honestly, lesson learned there. I was trying to hit those opening lines, but again, I mean, it's always important to check those weathers before you hit those opening lines and before you bet there. Lesson learned, paying my taxes here as I roll through this process. Hitman, let's just get right into it here. I tweeted from the Forward Progress HQ account that I think there's an edge to be had with Taylor Swift attending the game here. And I know that sounds a little crazy, right? But I truly think that this could be an edge, not for this week, but in weeks moving forward. So I'm going to paint the scene for you, and you're going to tell me if I'm crazy or not, and you're going to tell me if you think this could potentially be an edge. Kelce now has had 2 injuries this season, right? He missed week 1, and last week against the Vikings, rolled up on that ankle, looked pretty bad, but he was in the game. He came back, and he was actually on the field for that Hail Mary Vikings play here. So we know that Travis Kelce has been hurt this year, and he might be a little nicked up, right? And so that kind of got me thinking, like, okay, if Travis Kelce is ever truly a questionable for the game, and he's like a game time decision here, do you think that Taylor Swift attending the football game could be an indicator that Travis Kelce might play that week? And if you think that is an indicator, how would you attack it in the prop market here? Would you look at maybe other receivers on the Chiefs? Would you be betting their under KC team total? So one, am I crazy for thinking that this might be an edge where you might get information before Kelce's officially confirmed in or out? And 2, how would you attack it?
No, that I agree with you. At first, I thought where you were going is you were like, oh, I think it's an edge maybe to play Kelce overs with Taylor Swift in attendance. And I was going to say, well, no, the edge is if we could get all these Swifties betting on his overs, inflating them a little bit, and then I'll come back with some unders. But no, when it comes to like when I heard that news that she was coming, it all but confirmed that Kelce was going to play in the game. The only problem is that the market was pretty confident that Kelce was going to play in the game. He already had receiving numbers up. The other players, they already had numbers up that were with the presumption that Kelce was going to be in the game. If it does ever come down to a situation where Kelce is a legitimate game time decision and there's no numbers on him and nobody knows how to price the Chiefs guys, then I actually don't think you're crazy at all. I think that would be an indicator that he is going to play in the game. But for this individual case, there was nothing that I did once I found out that news. But it could be in the future if we ever do get a situation where we don't know if he's playing or not.
So let's say Kelce props aren't posted, but there's a couple other receiver props out there. Would you just look to attack those guys' unders in this scenario where we think Kelce might not be playing? Taylor Swift shows up, says, hey, I'm coming to the game. Is that how you attack it? Would you look at like a team total over? Would you look at a game over? What do you think? Like, what's the best way to attack it here?
It's really just like on an individual basis. Like if it was like, if the best example I could give, if you go back to that Lions Chiefs game in week 1, Kelce was like a legitimate game time decision. Mm-hmm. Nobody had any idea, I think, until Wednesday or whatever. And if something like that happened and all the prop numbers didn't know what to do, if something like that happened and we got news like that, then yeah, go ahead and bet it before the numbers are adjusted or something. But
perfect.
Again, this game, it wasn't a factor for this specific game just because it was reported yesterday that Kelce was likely going to play despite the questionable tag.
Fair enough here. But yeah, I just wanted to get that out there because, again, I'm only on this for the Thursday games, and I want to just share my thoughts. And if I'm crazy or not, I can be a little crazy and unhinged, but I'm glad that you're kind of thinking along the same lines as me here. Let's move on to the conversation of the quarterbacks here, right? I mean, there's been some discourse on Twitter, albeit a little bit insane, that Russell Wilson might be having a better season than Patrick Mahomes. I don't care about that discourse. What I want to talk about is Russell Wilson himself. And if you think he's having a better year than last year so far, he's looked a little bit better. He's looked a little bit more like vintage Russ, using his legs to kind of go out, make plays, get those first downs, extend the plays so that he can throw downfield to his receivers here. I'm seeing shades of the old Russell Wilson here, right? But then again, on the other hand, the Broncos have basically been blown out in the majority of these games, which may have more to do with Russell Wilson's performance than him looking better, right? So what are your thoughts on Russell Wilson so far this year? Do you think he's better or worse or the same as last year? And then on top of that, Denver's offense, same question. Better, worse, or the same as last year?
Yeah, I mean, he's played better this year. The offense has looked better. It's the defense that's taken the big regression. I will say that it looks like Sean Payton, I know that him and Wilson had a little bit of a falling out on the sideline last week, and there's a lot of rumblings that Sean Payton in Denver might be looking to get rid of some guys like Jerry Jeudy, and they got rid of Randy Gregory. They're going to get rid of Frank Clark. Looks like they're cleaning house with a lot of guys. So, I mean, I don't think that that's going to help Wilson if they look to get rid of some guys like Jeudy, maybe Cortland Sutton. Who knows? But, yeah, he's obviously looked better. And he looked better. If you look at his numbers after Hackett was fired last year, like they got instantly better, even for like that 3-4 week sample size as soon as Hackett left. So, I mean, I still think that Russell Wilson, although he's a below average quarterback, you can play with him. You can win with him if the rest of the team is good. But the problem with Denver is just the rest of the team just isn't good right now. So, yeah, Wilson's looked a little bit better than last year, obviously, but still nothing close to the old Seattle Wilson. And I know we have a play on Russell Wilson. I see in the comments somebody asked about his pass yards.
So we'll get to those comments in a second, just shortly here quickly. I just have a couple more questions for you, just kind of macro level questions, just to talk about the game a little bit more here. I mean, you mentioned the trade, the news that the Broncos are going to be looking to trade pieces. Sounds like Jerry Jeudy's probably going to be gone before the trade deadline. Same thing with Cortland Sutton. He might also be gone here. Do you think that they're going to this isn't a good game to do it, but do you think they'll have like one game where it's like kind of a showcase? Then we'll see a decrease in those guys' usage as the games go on, just to kind of prevent them from getting hurt here. And if both these guys get moved, how are you going to attack this team like in the prop market? Is it just going to be like a dead zone of wide receivers? Are you going to look at a guy like Marvin Mims, or you're just kind of not thinking that far ahead just yet?
So I thought about the Jeudy thing, the reports coming out today that he was likely going to be traded. And I was thinking about like, how do I look to attack it? On one hand, you could say like, all right, maybe they'll preserve him and everything. But I mean, I don't think that happens this week. And like on the other hand, the devil's advocate on the other side could say, well, maybe they look to showcase him too and try to bring up his trade value. So I did. It was a thought that crossed my head today when I was thinking about props, but I ended up. I'm ending up not going to do anything with it. If it does get to the point where these guys get traded prop markets, I mean, yeah, Marvin Mims is the obvious guy that's going to get the jump, but for some reason, Sean Payton just doesn't want to play him this year, despite him having I think something crazy, like 4 yards per route run or something. And he's still getting like 10, 12 snaps a game. And they're playing Brandon Johnson over him. So we'll see what happens when the time comes. One bet, I know we've been doing well with giving out those season win bets that I've been making. The only one that I did bet this week is I bet Denver under 4.5 wins plus 140. And if Denver keeps their whole roster together, I came out to about 4.9 wins, which is essentially what I'm betting. So it was on market. Like there was no edge, assuming Denver continues to have the power rating that I have on them. But with all these reports about that they're going to trade people, and I think they're legit. I think that Denver – and they have a tough schedule coming up. Like they have KC tonight. They have Green Bay next week at home. All right, they'll be small dogs. And then they got Buffalo the week after. So there's a good chance they're going to be out of the playoff picture by the time these games come. And I think that these reports that they do move on from guys is legit. So I think that my Denver power rating is going to be lowered. And I think that Denver under 4.5 wins plus 140-ish is worth a bet.
Okay, I'm going to lock that into the account right now, full unit, because we've been kind of rocking and rolling with those on these Thursday shows. If you kind of missed them beforehand, I believe we had two Jets unders played week 3 and week 5. And then we have a Bears under, I think it's 5.5 or 4.5 played in week 5 last week. They won last week, but I mean, I don't think that Bears team looks too promising at all here. So let's kind of stick with this game though for a little bit longer. Then we'll get to those questions. Let's see where are we at here. Let's talk a little bit about the Chiefs, right? We talked a little bit about the Broncos here. We haven't really talked about the Chiefs yet. They were talked about early on in the season and still are a big powerhouse in the NFL. But I mean, all the talk from the media seems to be coming from or talking about teams like the 49ers and teams like the Dolphins, and rightfully so. Those teams look fantastic this year. Both those teams do look strong. So I'm curious what you think right now about the Chiefs, where they are in your power rankings, if either of those teams have kind of made you shift down the Chiefs a little bit more at all. Looking at futures, Pinnacle has them as the odds-on favorite to win the AFC at plus 250. They're around plus 500 to win the Super Bowl right now. Where do you have the Chiefs ranked power ratings wise? And are they still, do you believe them to be the best team in the AFC?
Yeah, I mean, they're clearly the number 2 team in the NFL. That's behind the San Francisco 49ers. But one thing I'll say is, even though, if they played right now, I would have the Niners favored over them. It's not I'm not sold that, by the time if they did get to the Super Bowl and we had that it wouldn't be closer to pick them. Because I think that the Chiefs power rating, especially if they can figure out this wide receiver rotation, maybe make a move for a wide receiver, that they could be power rated just as high as San Francisco at some point when we get later into the year. But they're still clearly number 2 for me. Buffalo took a step back with these defensive injuries, and maybe it doesn't show up against the Giants this week, but it's going to show up when you face the other top teams in the AFC. They've really lost a lot of guys, and they still have not had a complimentary player step up next to Stephon Diggs. I mean, they drafted Dalton Cade, and they were going to run what they were calling the 11.5 personnel with him as a slot receiver, and it just hasn't worked out so far. So, yeah, for me, Kansas City, I mean, I've said this in the past with Kansas City, is I've bet on them a lot, in the last 5-6 years, whether it's big games or futures with Mahomes or Super Bowls, whatever. And they kind of remind me of those New England teams where New England every year would exceed market expectations, whether it's in the future markets, they always went over their regular season win total. They always won their division. They're always in the AFC Championship. Kansas City, it's another team. I mean, Mahomes could easily go down in the same tier as Brady by the end of his career. And you have a head coach in Andy Reid that, like, if he sticks around another 6, 7, 8 years, he could go down in Belichick's tier if he gets a few more rings with a great quarterback like Mahomes. So, like, it's a team that I'm just always trying to be higher on than market, to be honest with you, especially in futures markets.
Yeah, fair enough here. I can see why it's like that for you. I mean, they always do seem to just pull out those wins from nowhere. But let's get into the actual game itself here. Let's get into some of these comments that people are dropping below. Reminder, if you're dropping comments, guys, please attach the yardage total or the amount of yards or the attempts that are you're looking for with these guys and the odds for it, right? Like, if you're just going to give us like X players rush yards, doesn't help us here. We're going to need like the number and the price it's at as well. Fries is asking about the backfield for the Kansas City Chiefs. And it's a little interesting because I think it was week 1 to 3. We kind of saw Clyde Edwards-Helaire get like 25% snaps to like 33-ish% snaps game to game here. But then the last 2 weeks, Isaiah Pacheco is just taking over here. I don't have the price on hand right now for Pacheco, but someone in the chat was asking about his rush attempts. It looks like it's at 16.5 plus 100 towards the over here. What are your thoughts on this backfield? How do you think it will play out? Are you looking at a guy like Pacheco and his rushing attempts, and do you think he'll get the entire workload here, or would you be looking more towards McKinnon's over yards or Clyde's yards? I mean, this Denver D has been awful against the run. So what are you playing here? What are you looking at for the case?
I actually would lean towards some Pacheco unders, and I haven't bet it, don't know if I'll bet it, but that's where my lean would be. And it's one of those things that, like, your process is really good where you're seeing like, oh, Pacheco's getting so much more work than Edwards-Helaire and McKinnon in recent weeks. And yes, that's 100% true. But you're also paying like a premium on Isaiah Pacheco now, where like a few weeks ago, he was in the mid 40s rushing yards. Like, he's been, I think against Minnesota, it was like low 60s rushing yards. Like, you're getting to the point now where you're getting to the high 70s and 16.5 carries. That's just getting too high for me. And remember one thing, Kansas City is always like top 3 in pass rate over expectation. So if you're going to bank on like Pacheco getting 17 carries and these type of yards, like, you're really putting a lot of stock in like Kansas City could blow the doors off of Denver. And I know the spread's 10.5, but like, we do have some weather in this game where it could keep this game a little bit closer than the market thinks, in my opinion, at least. But I just think that all your handicaps are right on Pacheco, but you're just paying a premium right now. So if anything, I'd look to go the other way, maybe a little bit closer to post if the line does continue to inflate.
Yeah, and his line right now, rushing yards, it's set at like 75.5 over on Pinnacle, and that's just about where the entire market is here. And I mean, you can get the under at plus 101 over at Pinnacle, and rushing receiving yards looks to be 98.5, like very, very inflated numbers we're seeing here for Isaiah.
I like Kyle Estrada's comment.
Kyle Estrada?
Yeah, Kyle. If you can, everybody look at the chat. If you can, go hit that. I don't know if I can. I'll let the chat get that one.
Yeah, I don't think I can get that either, unfortunately. I don't know how a guy like me can't get that. But apparently someone out there thinks I'm sharp. They're definitely wrong, and it's their loss. Anyways, you mentioned something, and I actually wanted to get to this a little bit earlier, and we're going to step away from the props here for a second. Sorry for making this so disjointed here. But I'm just curious your thoughts on the total and the spread of this game, right? Because we saw it open at – the spread opened at 10.5. Total opened, as I know very well, at 51. And it's gone all the way down to like 47, 46.5 range. Are you shocked at all that the spread hasn't moved at all in relation to the total and it's just kind of staying the same? Is that like normal, or does that make you want to play like that plus 10.5 a little bit more?
Yeah, I'm surprised. If you look at some of the sharper shops right now, there is a 10 out there. And I know Pinnacle, which is a sharper shop, they're more juiced on Denver. So that kind of tells you, I think that Denver is the sharper side in this game. And then meanwhile, you can look at like some of the square shops right now. There's an 11 out there on Denver right now, which I think that 11 may be worth a small bet. But you know what? I would lean towards Denver with the spread. Again, I am surprised that it didn't come down much with this total going down from 51.5 to 47. So I'm surprised that the spread didn't come down with it. at most shops. And yeah, I bet the under, but it was at better prices at 47 right now. It's not something that I'm looking to bet.
Fair enough here. And here's another one from the chat that I kind of like really like. Eric's can't pronounce your last name, Disa, but Eric in the chat mentioning Marvin Mims to lead the game in reception yards. I mean, that's like more of an exotic market. You can't really find that at every books, but he found it at 32-1 over here. I mean, would you play that at plus 3,000? Listen, I actually like it. And here's the reason why I like it is because, like you mentioned, it's going to be a weather game, high winds. Marvin Mims is the type of player that can make that big explosive play, and he might be able to lead this game in receptions literally off of one catch because of his explosiveness in the passing game. He doesn't play a lot, like you mentioned, and we mentioned earlier before, but I mean, at plus 3,000, like, would you take that? Would you lean towards that is a better way to put it?
Probably. I mean, I just don't know if this is the game to do it just because the deep passing is likely to be affected in this game. And with Marvin Mims, I mean, he only played 10 snaps last week. He was behind Brandon Johnson. And is it really going to be a short week where they do make the switch, where they're going to start playing this rookie in, especially a rookie that had a fumble last week? And I believe he also had a messed up exchange on a reverse as well last week. So I know that I understand why you're looking at it because Marvin Mims is a high variance player that typically, if you're going to look to bet on him, you're going to look at some alternate markets. But with that said, I just don't think it's the game to do it with the wins and all that. And on a short week, I just don't know if they finally get the rookie involved off a short week after he made mistakes.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Without that full week of practice under his belt, after a week of making a mistake there, you're right. I'm gonna lay off that as well. I mean, I see those big prices in my eyes always like light up, and that's why some books should want me as their as a customer, but apparently some don't. Anyways, let's continue on. We're here. Eric has another question in the chat, and I think this goes more towards the weather aspect. And Eric's mentioning Mahomes under 272 and a half passing yards here at minus 110 is what he found it at. Do you like the Mahomes passing under here with the weather? I know that's probably baked into the line already here, but I mean, would you go and lean towards that side?
Yeah, I just think I think that it's a little bit for some reason I feel like it's been more baked into Mahomes' number than it was Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson's number, when it at least opened, which was in like the high 220s range, I felt like even without the weather, it was something that I was like, oh, I'm going to lean towards the under on this. With Mahomes, it's just pretty depressed right now off of we're usually used to seeing in the high 280s, 290s and everything. And so I can't get there with the under 272 and a half. Now, I mean, with that said, I remember there's times where before kickoff, we might be getting reports that come out that say, hey, it's really bad, even worse than anticipated. And then, yeah, maybe I revisit it and I look to play something like that. But with what I'm hearing right now, I think that the line on Mahomes has been adjusted enough to the point that it makes it a pass.
And it's always good, like you said, you bring up a great point there. If you're looking to get an edge in market here, make sure you're grinding Twitter before these potential weather games, right? Because you want to be the first to know and the quickest to react to whenever we hear reports about weather, whether it be from people with boots on the ground or not. I remember that I always think about that Buffalo game whenever someone mentions bad weather, because I was actually lucky enough to attend that game, and I'm not even kidding you. I was an hour out. We drove to Buffalo. I live in Toronto. We drove to Buffalo, and an hour out, there was literally a wall of snow where everything was fine. We drove in, then we literally hit a wall of snow, and snow was going sideways. It was insane. Couldn't bet in the States there because location services and all that jazz, but it was just a cool thing to see and hear about here. Sticking with the Mahomes, RW fan 23 asked us in the comments, thoughts on Mahomes under 34 and a half attempts plus 100, or how about Mahomes under 25 and a half passes complete at minus 130? You sticking with the same thing there? You feel like that's a little too inflated?
Same thing I said about the yards. I mean,
Fair
it
enough.
closed last week his pass attempts, I think at 38 and a half, 39 and a half. something like that. And again, different scenario where they're 3.5-point favorite against Minnesota. Now you're a 10.5-point favorite against Denver, but pretty much the same answer with where it comes with the yards.
Exactly. Something to monitor here. Always keep your eye on Twitter for those things if you're trying to play them. And again, like Hitman said, if you can, and if you can grind Twitter and you can get news that you think before the books have that information, go and play those unders there if you think it's going to be really bad, or if someone boots on the ground says it's going to be really bad here. Let's stick with the passing game because Hitman, this is one of the plays you want. This is the play that you wanted to make today. Stephen Robinson, right when we hopped on, you and him are simpatical. He said, I took Russell Wilson under 219.5 passing yards here. No price attached, but Hitman, what do you think about Russell Wilson under 219.5 passing yards? I mean, not available right now, but the general market is at 215.5. Best price I see is 217.5, minus 110 towards the under here. Hitman, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I did play the Russell Wilson unders, high 220s, was low 220s, 217.5. Still think it's worth maybe a smaller bet. One of the things that Sean Payton came out and said recently in press conferences is he was saying, we need to get the run game going. I need to be more patient with the run. So I think that that's just another factor that you could get on top of the weather in this game, that Sean Payton maybe a little more, not as aggressive with the pass game. And Kansas City, their pass defense has been pretty good this year, and it's been their run defense that still has had a few holes. So you get Javonte Williams back. Jaleel McLaughlin looked really good last week. You get the weather on top of it, even though the number has gotten away from us a little bit. If you're going to make a bet on this game, probably worth a small bet on Russell Wilson under 217.5.
Fair enough here, and I'm going to lock that in. Do you want a half unit on that? I'm good with half unit.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Just locked in right there. Half unit on Russell Wilson under 217.5 passing yards, over at minus 110 here. Hitman, before I let you out here, one more thing I want to get to. It looks like all the plays in the chat are finished here, but you touched on the Denver running offense, and Jaleel McLaughlin, I was impressed with him last week, right? He looked explosive. He's small, but he looks very explosive. And just thinking about how Sean Payton likes to use his running backs in years past with the Saints, I think about guys like Reggie Bush. I think about guys like Darren Sproles for a little bit. I think about guys like Alvin Kamara. Do you think that in the future we could see that kind of role carved out here for Jaleel McLaughlin? And would you be looking to attack that in the prop market?
Yeah, it's something that you really got to pay attention to this backfield, because it looks like we're going to a 3-man committee right now with Denver. And Javonte Williams, his numbers opened pretty high. They've been bet down, but it's one of those things that I'm going to be monitoring the reports coming out about what people think this backfield ends up being, because Javonte, he's coming off a serious injury last season. It really surprised people of how early he came back. And a lot of people are saying there's no way he could be close to 100%. Now he picks up that quad injury, didn't play last week. He's coming back for a Thursday game. Maybe McLaughlin and Perrine still are leading this backfield. So I lean towards the Williams unders, rushing receiving, 51.5 right now. I would lean towards that under, and I would monitor a lot of the news and the reports when it comes to this backfield.
All right. I like that. I appreciate you answering that question for me here, Hitman. I mean, we've gone for about 30 minutes here. I'll let you free, but before you go, same thing every single time we're on the show here. You knew it was coming. Do you have any plays that you like? I know you already gave out that future of 4.5 plus 140. What team was that for, by the way? I forgot.
Broncos under 4.5 wins plus 140. So, yep.
Broncos under 4.5 wins plus 140. You also gave out Russell Wilson under 217.5 passing yards. You can find that at minus 110 here. But before you go, any best bets or you have for Sunday, or is that it for us here?
That's it for right now. Okay. Are you going to ask? You're not going to ask me the first touchdown thing that I hate every single week?
I'm going to ask you it. Next question. First touchdown. I'll open the door. Last touchdown, first touchdown. Even if you want to do 2+ touchdown, whatever you want to do, you tell me here. Just any touchdown related prop for some fun for the people out there that we don't recommend betting. This is a gun to your head bet.
We'll go with Rashee Rice, 16-1. A lot of talk about him getting some more usage. Does it happen on the bye week? We'll see. He only had 10 routes last week, which was concerning, but his target share has been crazy when he has been on the field. Maybe Rice gets some more routes and we get a first touchdown. So if you're going to bet something small, we'll go with that.
All right, Rashee Rice, 16-1 for your first touchdown. I love that here. And then last question before I let you go. Like, what side do you have on this game here? Let's make it a spread. I was just gonna ask you for like just the outcome of the game, but like, what side are you taking here on the spread? The -2.5, -10.5, or the +10.5 here?
I'm in some pick'em pools and everything, and I took Denver +10.5. That would be my lean towards the game. Thought about betting it, probably don't end up betting it, but that's where my head would be at. And shop around. You might be able to find an 11 at a Square shop right now. So
beautiful. Love it. Thank you so much for your time, Hitman. We'll talk soon.
awesome. Thank you.
All right. See ya. That was Hitman, former pro bettor, back to now being a bettor. He's finally won his props last week. We appreciate you guys tuning in here, guys. Thank you so much. Before we go, one more thing. I was able to reach out to Eric Eager. He's not going to be on the show today, but I'm going to act as his proxy because every week on this show here, we do a survivor pick. And this week, we are taking his Kansas City Chiefs for our survivor pool. In our last entry, we started the season with 4. I mean, we got whittled down in the first week. We picked Denver in the first week, and oh my God, what a mistake that was. We went down to 3 entries, picked the Jags in week 3, lost that one, but we have 1 entry remaining, and we are going strong. So we are going to take KC tonight for our Make Believe survivor pool, guys. And that just about does it here for Forward Progress. Guys, before you head out, before you leave, smash that like button, hit that subscribe button, drop a comment on your prediction for tonight's game, guys. And don't forget, live on the Hammer HQ YouTube channel, head over to YouTube, type in the Hammer HQ. You can catch Rob Pizzola for a live watch along of the game. And guys, I'm not kidding you when I say we have been absolutely crushing those games. Betting wise, we lock in our bets at 8 o'clock live on the show right before the game. So if you're looking for a little bit more action before the game, make sure you tune into that live watch along. And if you're going to be watching the game alone, you might as well throw the live watch along in the background, comment along. It's a lot of fun to do. It's a lot of fun to interact with the chat there. It's been going strong in the recent weeks. So keep it up. We appreciate you guys. Last thing here, live at 2 p.m. tomorrow. I will be back here on this same YouTube channel, Forward Progress, live alongside Matthew Freeman from The Fantasy Life, John Legeza from The Athletic, and Jack Miller from Establish the Run to talk player props, Friday practice reports, injury fallouts from the week, everything that has to do with betting props for Sunday. You do not want to miss out on that show if you're looking to bet some player props here. So, guys, that'll just about do it for us. Thank you so much for everyone for tuning in. For myself, for Hitman, this has been Forward Progress, powered by Pinnacle on the Hammer Betting Network. Guys, we'll catch you later. Have a good one.